this is very exciting. Joining me on the Ty and Matt show is the man who's the presumptive nominee for the Green Party as of June of this year. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Howie Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be here.
Great. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us a little bit. Something my co-host, who unfortunately cannot join us this evening, and I share is an interest in the idea of there being more than just the two traditional political parties here in the United States. As I just mentioned, you're a member of the Green Party. And in fact, I think it goes a little deeper than just being a member of the Green Party. Am I correct?
I was there at the first national meeting we had to organize the Green Party in St. Paul, Minnesota in August 1984.
Wow.
I've been involved from the beginning.
Wow, that's neat. So what has that been like to be at the very beginning of a political campaign and watch it grow and evolve over the course of decades?
Well, for me, it began in the 1960s. 1964, I'm in California, I'm 12 years old. Reagan is campaigning against the Run for Fair Housing law that had just passed to get it repealed in a referendum.
Mm-hmm.
And I was brought up in a Republican family. And one of the things they told me is the Republicans stood for civil rights,
Mm-hmm.
the party of Lincoln. And that obviously was not the case. So I said, well, let's see what the Democrats are going to do. And they had a choice to seat the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, which represented all the Mississippians, black and white, or the Dixiecrats, the segregated delegation.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnson told the convention, just tell the Freedom Democrats they're going to have to wait. And so I was asking, where's my party? And my first party was the Peace and Freedom Party in California. Peace in Vietnam, freedom was the civil rights slogan.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a People's Party that included the Peace and Freedom Party nationally. In 1972 and 76, ran Dr. Benjamin Spock, the baby doctor that raised my generation. And then Barry Commoner, the foremost environmental scientist at that time in 1980 with the Citizens Party. So I've seen this effort at forming an independent party on the left go on for a long time now. And the good news is we're still here. The Greens have survived 35 years.
Yeah.
But we have so much more potential, and particularly now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking of the coronavirus crisis.
Yes, absolutely.
Trump gave up. The virus won. He's a loser. But where's Biden?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could convene the White House press corps. He's within commuter distance, and have news conferences and demand that we get a national test, trace, and quarantine program going to suppress the virus. Tens of thousands of people are dying because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And, Trump is obviously incompetent, but where the hell is Biden? So, for us, that's, like the first thing we're demanding. Let's deal with this like every other organized society in the world.
Yeah.
And instead, we lead the world in coronavirus infections and deaths.
Definitely some great points. Now, obviously, coronavirus is going to be a huge topic in 2020. It has been all year. It's going to continue to be. But what are some of the other things that are big key points for the Green Party?
Well, my campaign from the beginning a year ago has emphasized three other life or death issues. And that is the climate meltdown. I was the first candidate in this country to campaign for a Green New Deal in 2010, running for governor of New York. And we have a program to get to zero to negative greenhouse gas emissions and 100% clean energy by 2030, which is what the carbon budgets that climate science has produced say a rich country like the United States needs to do if we're going to avoid the worst impacts of climate change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one. Secondly, inequality. We've had 50 years of stagnant wages and growing inequality, and now working class life expectancies are falling. So people are dying because they got to choose between paying the utilities and the rent or going to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So we're calling for an economic bill of rights, which has always been part of our Green New Deal. So there should be a job guarantee. There should be a guaranteed income above poverty, something Dr. King was demanding with the Poor People's Campaign in 1968. Affordable housing, Medicare for all, tuition-free public education from childcare and pre-K through post-secondary college and trade schools, and a secure retirement. We want to double Social Security benefits so every senior is above the poverty line.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third issue is the new nuclear arms race. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists has their doomsday clock the closest it's ever been to midnight. We've been getting out all these nuclear arms treaties. The last bilateral treaty between the United States and Russia concerning strategic arms expires next February 5th.
Mm-hmm.
None of the presidential candidates are talking about it. It should be a top campaign issue. So we have peace initiatives, deep cuts in military spending, pledge no first use of nuclear weapons, disarm to a minimum credible deterrent, and then go to the other nuclear powers and say, let's negotiate complete and mutual nuclear disarmament, and go there with the support of the 122 nations who 3 years ago yesterday agreed to the text of the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. The International Campaign for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons got the Nobel Peace Prize for that 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And hardly anybody in this country knows that. Mm-hmm. So those were the three issues. And then I guess the fifth life or death issue is the centuries-old pandemic of racism, which people of color have known about, but now the white people are getting mad because it's in living color on their TV screens. Mm-hmm. And they're outraged. So there's measures we got to do there. And we're saying, let's not just defund the police, let's defund the military, because there's not enough money in the police budgets to provide the services that are better provided by other people than the police. You know, if you're homeless, you need a home, not a vagrancy charge. If you're drug addicted, you need medical treatment, not a prison sentence, and so forth. But you could take all the police budgets, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what's needed in these communities that have been segregated, discriminated against, and exploited for generations. So we're calling for, as part of our Green New Deal, basically a Marshall Plan for the cities. Let's rebuild the housing, the healthcare, the schools, the businesses, and uplift these communities. And it's going to take more than the police budgets. The federal government's got to provide the funding.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all fascinating and great stuff to be running on. I did have a question. I was doing some research. You've run a number of times. Was each time you've run for various offices as a Green Party candidate?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, it's no secret that running as a third party candidate is not an easy thing to do. So what have you learned from previous campaigns that you think is going to help you in 2020?
Well, it takes time to build support. When I first ran in Syracuse, New York, 1993, I got 3% of the vote. By 2011, I got 48%. I was just short of getting elected to the city council. Mm-hmm. I got 35% running citywide in 2015. We ran minor celebrities for governor of New York in 2002 and 2006, and we came up short of the number of votes. Mm-hmm. So in 2010, they turned to me. You've run a lot of times. Why don't you give it a try? And nobody knew who I was. But we had a good message. We communicated with the media, and we built up a pretty good organization. So we were able to get the votes. So, you know, what I've learned is it takes grassroots organizing to build a real organization, and then you got to stick with it. Mm-hmm. And celebrities are no shortcut. And I've been involved in movements going back to the anti-Vietnam War movement, where we started out a vilified minority. Mm-hmm. And over time, we won people over. I've been through that so many times, so I'm confident sooner or later, we're going to have an independent party on the left. And I think this is a good year for it, because Trump is sinking like a stone. You know, everybody can see he doesn't know what he's doing with the coronavirus. The economy's in the tank. Every time he moves his lips, people know he's lying. So he's over. So, but what's Biden offering? When you think of Joe Biden, what issue is he the champion of? Through his whole career.
Yeah, I couldn't name one.
Yeah. So you got to give people a reason to vote. And these life or death issues I was talking about, we got real solutions. So I think we're an option for people that want to say, here's what we want. And it'll be difficult for us to win. But what I tell people is, don't get lost in the sauce. If you want to get rid of Trump, don't vote for Biden. A vote for the Greens is a vote against Trump. It's not in his column, it's in ours.
Yeah.
And make your voice heard and tell people what you want. If you vote for Biden and you're for Medicare for all, nobody knows that. They don't know maybe you're a Sanders supporter who settled for Biden. Mm-hmm. You know, vote for the Greens, because we are for Medicare for all.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, you know, obviously brought it up already, that it's no small feat. You guys are definitely on the way. But what would be, aside from the obvious, which is winning the whole thing, what would you consider a success for your 2020 campaign?
Well, more ballot lines. This country is the hardest in the world among the electoral democracies just to get on a ballot.
Hmm.
And I still believe we're going to build the Green Party into a major party from the bottom up. We should be electing thousands to local office and from there to state legislatures and Congress. But getting on the ballot in this country take Congress. It takes thousands of signatures in most states to run as an independent. If you have a ballot line, it scores. So it's much easier. And then you can run. And it's the same thing at the local level. In other countries, like in New Zealand, you want to run as an independent for their parliament, 2 signatures.
Wow.
In Illinois, it's over 15,000. In the United Kingdom, you want to run for the House of Commons as an independent, 10 signatures.
Oh my God.
Here it's thousands.
Yeah.
And so forth. So, so we get ballot lines in 40 of the 50 states. The presidential vote determines whether you get a ballot line. In most states, it's 1, 2, or 3% of the vote. So it's really within our reach.
Yeah.
And then we can run a lot more candidates locally. We do have 129 elected Greens around the country. It's one of the best kept political secrets in American politics. It's more than any third party on the left going back until you have to go back to the heyday of the Socialist Party.
Mm-hmm.
So, we got a toehold. Now we got to get a foothold and start climbing the ladder.
That was the thing that astounded me when my co-host and I started looking into third-party candidates and what all goes into that is just how difficult it is to even get a foothold, which seems, at least by my estimation, to be detrimental to everybody. Not knowing that there are these other options and ideas and groups that you could possibly be voting into office.
Well, and you look at the history of third parties in this country, going back to the Working Men's Party, 1829-30. That was the first labor party in the world. Karl Marx was still a kid running around Trier, Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a Working Men's Party. It actually elected the president of the Carpenters Union to the State Assembly of New York. And they put, the reforms that workers needed as industrialization was beginning. And then the Liberty Party put the question of slavery on the ballot. And the Greenback Labor and People's Party, the populist parties, put monopoly, public ownership of public utilities, and banking and money reforms and land reform on the agenda. And that's what they were debating from the end of the Civil War to 1900. And then the Socialist Party, the social insurance programs that were finally adopted in the New Deal, the socialists have been talking about for 3 decades beforehand. Mm-hmm. So that's been the historic role of third parties, to bring issues to the table that the 2 major parties won't discuss.
Yeah. And
we want to do that, but we want to go further. We want to do like the Republicans did. People say Lincoln was a third party candidate. Actually, by the time he ran, he was a second party candidate. The Republicans were already, for 2 sessions of Congress, the second party in Congress.
Yeah, well, it'll certainly be interesting to watch this year and for years to come to see how things evolve and change. I think people are getting hungrier for some of those other options. We're running low on time. I know like I said, you're a very busy man. We got to let you go. But we had a couple more questions, and I think if it's all right with you, we're just going to breeze through them. Is that all right?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. We've been accused of some softballs in the past, but we're gonna try and beef it up a little bit.
All right.
Let's see. So we got here. Let's see. What is your favorite color?
Green.
That was a trick question, and you passed with flying colors. I'm glad you got that one. All right. It's kind of late. I think it's kind of late at night. You're kind of tired. What are you ordering for takeout?
Chinese.
That's a good one. It's a great answer. Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
LeBron.
LeBron. Okay. And this is an easy one. 2-word question. Bigfoot real? Yes or no?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Would you consider, this is the last one. This is a tough one. Would you consider the Ty and Matt Show to be America's podcast?
I would consider that.
All right.
I consider anything. I haven't seen it. I've enjoyed this interview.
I appreciate that, Mr. Hawkins. Maybe we shouldn't have worded it as would you consider it, because, yeah, sure, I'll consider anything. All right. Well, I want to make sure people know where to find you online. So where can they learn more about you, learn more about the Green Party?
Well, go to my campaign website, howiehawkins.us. It's easy to remember, howiehawkins.us. And there you can see what our position papers, our news releases, articles about us. You can volunteer, donate, Just sign up to get bulletins about the campaign and find the links to other social media.
All right. And one of those I was given beforehand was at Howie Hawkins on Twitter. So be sure to check that out. Mr. Hawkins, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks for having me.